The relationship with the father of my child was very toxic. My ex was a typical psychopath who enjoyed abusing others, including me. He also used alcohol. He used me physically, mentally, economically, and sexually. When I saw 2 lines on the pregnancy test and heard from him, greater than take it F. Remove it, I will not pay money for any brat greater than you will see. I will give birth to this baby, and I'll be fine without you. Agata gave birth to a son because she wanted to take revenge on her former partner, who ordered her to terminate her pregnancy. However, she did not expect the consequences of her decision. You confessed that you decided to carry the pregnancy to term to annoy the abusive father of your child, who wanted you to have an abortion. Do you know today where that reaction came from? Agata, name changed, personal details of the heroine for the editor's attention. I suspect it resulted from my mental state. I had already gotten pregnant once before, which I had terminated, then I had no doubts. The second time, however, I was battered, in total depression, after a suicide attempt, and the decision I made was not entirely rational. As is often the case in toxic relationships, I left after his reaction, only to return immediately. Has it improved between you? We were abroad, in England. My child's father didn't earn money. He only drank. While pregnant, I worked physically in a warehouse and supported us. He didn't care about the pregnancy at all. It just didn't exist for him. But as soon as I found out I would be a mother, I called my parents. They said, "We'll make it, don't worry, baby. We'll get through it all." They supported me in my decision from the beginning. However, to this day, I cannot explain the impulse that made me keep the pregnancy. For many weeks I fought with thoughts that I didn't want this child. I didn't know how I would love it. It wasn't until a month before giving birth that I accepted that I would be a mother. I said I did it to spite my ex because the impulse came from his words. But I can't explain it. What happened before birth? We returned to Poland just before the dissolution because with my English maternity, it was easier to live here. In Poland, after counting all the benefits, I still had the so-called working tax credit. It came out to about 4,000. We wouldn't be able to support ourselves in England, and my partner didn't want to go to work. We chose Gdańsk, far from my family home, so I didn't have contact with my loved ones. I was waiting for the delivery, and when the contractions started, I went to the hospital. It was evening, and my partner was not with me. So the following day I called him and asked him to come. Turns out he's been drinking all night and cannot get up. Childbirth was a traumatic experience for me. I had contractions that didn't register for CTG, so the midwives thought that labor had not started yet, and I was walking on the walls because of the pain. Finally, after 30 hours, it was decided to examine me, and it turned out that I was fully dilated. I was immediately taken to the delivery room. Sounds terrible. The little one was losing his pulse, tired of the delivery, so it was decided that he would be born by cesarean section. Although I had to be put to sleep due to spinal degeneration, I saw my son several hours after waking up. This did not make it easier for me to accept that I had become a mother. On the contrary, I hoped there would be a spontaneous explosion of love and euphoria when I heard his first cry and saw him. But you didn't feel anything? No. The baby was born with neonatal asphyxia and was not brought to me until 12 hours after birth. So it was for me too. I don't even know how to describe it. They just gave me some baby. So it wasn't a newborn smeared in my amniotic fluid. It was a clean, clothed baby. I didn't feel like it was my baby, and at the hospital, they told me I had to take care of him. For the next few months, there were times when I wondered if he was really my son. Because how was I supposed to know? It was space for me. What's more, my ex did not engage in childcare at all. That's why I didn't really bond with my son at first. The little one lost weight and had problems with sucking the breast, but I insisted that I feed him, since I did not give birth naturally. I read that a mother who doesn't do this is not a mother. I had problems with lactation. How was your day? At 10 a.m., I fed my son for 30 minutes. After he finished eating, I pumped milk with a breast pump for another half hour. After that, I had to boil the breast pump for another 15 minutes. Finally, changing the baby and putting him to bed took about an hour. That left me an hour and a half before my next feeding, and I had to decide whether to sleep, eat, or bathe. So, this was what my day looked like for the first month. I was physically and mentally exhausted. I had the impression that I was walking on ice breaking under me, that I had nothing to hold on to, and that I couldn't do anything. The child's father did not help me with anything, but he resented that there was no dinner, the house was not cleaned, etc. As a result, I left him when the child was 7 weeks old. I had to run away with him. I found asylum with my mother and grandmother. Are you getting better? They tried to help me take care of my son. But at some point, it dawned on me that I was gone, that my life had come down to caring for a child. And this child was constantly in need of something. I didn't have the opportunity to decide about my own time. It didn't matter what I wanted. I even adapted the trips to the toilet to the child's needs. I didn't sleep at night because he didn't sleep. Despite my struggle to breastfeed, it didn't work. The baby was losing weight, so we stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. When I started feeding him formula milk, I felt like a failure. I thought I was worth nothing, that I was no mother. A nasty feeling that led to hate for my son instead of love. I wanted it to disappear. I cried, convinced that he had taken my life, that he had stolen it from me, that I was no longer human, no longer a woman because of him. I felt like in prison. In these emotions and frustration, I raised my hand against him. What happened? He was about 2 or 2.5 years old. It was night. He couldn't sleep. He wanted something from me. He was screaming, crying, and I was my child. Then I hit him. When I realized what I had done, I got scared and needed help because I could hurt myself or him. I went to a psychiatrist. Diagnosis: severe depression caused by unwanted motherhood. I decided to be treated, and I got drugs that saved my and my child's life. We slowly developed a bond, and I fell in love with my son when he was 3. I understand that nothing miraculously changed, as if by magic. It's not like I'm a happy mother and motherhood fan. But, to this day, I do not understand how you can want to have a child or decide to have a second child and another. Because the first 3 years with a child were a nightmare for me, I would not survive it again. This total put me on the sidelines. I ceased to exist. I said that I was at the end of serving a child. I was sure that I had no rights, only duties. I wouldn't want because I had a child. I felt as if it had stolen my life and made me die as a man and woman. I'm only starting to recover when my son is 7. I love him very much. He is diagnosed with ADHD, autism spectrum, but to me, he is terrific despite that. He is looked after by a psychologist, pedagogue, and speech therapist. He is a lovely kid, and now we are okay. He knows how to take care of himself and gives me space for myself. But honestly, if I could turn back time and even have his smiling, beaming face in front of my eyes, I don't know if I would have decided to give birth. During this challenging time, attachment parenting helped me a lot. This trend focuses on understanding the child's emotions and respecting them because, thanks to this, I understood my son's behavior, such as why he gets hysterical and angry. It made it a lot easier for me. Suppose I hadn't been aware that some things in him are due to the immaturity of his brain or emotional control system. In that case, I suspect it would have ended in tragedy. His problems cost me a lot of nerves. Why did you decide to tell me this? Because it's time to debunk the myth of perfect motherhood and the belief that every woman should give birth. If motherhood is someone's goal, that's great, but telling someone that if they have a uterus, they must have children, or hating on women who don't want them or don't feel comfortable being a mother, shouldn't be happening. So we have to fight it. Maybe my story will help someone.